Beneath their polished, confident façade, narcissists harbor unexpected vulnerabilities and deep-seated insecurities. While they thrive on admiration and carefully curate their outward image, they are often plagued by an internal fragility they work tirelessly to conceal. To maintain control and avoid facing their own uncomfortable truths, they manipulate and dominate others, weaving a web of influence that protects their carefully constructed persona. Yet for those willing to look closer, the cracks in this armor reveal much about their true nature. Are you curious about what lies beneath the surface? Together, we'll navigate the fascinating yet complex psychological terrain of narcissism. We'll delve into 12 critical questions, each designed to pierce the veil of narcissistic behavior. These thought-provoking questions aren't just tools for understanding, they're strategies to help you recognize the signs, anticipate their reactions, and shield yourself from their emotional games. By asking the right questions, we can expose the hidden layers of a narcissist's psyche, revealing their inner world and how they respond when their vulnerabilities are brought to light. Join us as we uncover these psychological truths and equip ourselves with the insight needed to protect our emotional well-being. What makes you happy? When you ask a narcissist what makes you happy, their honest answer, if they were capable of sharing it, might be nothing at all. Happiness for a narcissist is rarely a deep, internal experience. Instead, it's tied to fleeting pleasures, buying a new car, acquiring luxury items, or basking in the glow of external validation through admiration and praise. Their pursuit of happiness is more about distraction than fulfillment. Initially, they might tell you that you are their happiness, that you're the most important person in their life. Be cautious with such declarations, as they often come during the idealization phase, when the narcissist is working to gain your trust and affection. Once they've achieved their goal, their behavior often shifts and their words no longer align with their actions. The love and attention they once showered on you may fade as they redirect their focus elsewhere. True happiness stems from inner peace and fulfillment, qualities that narcissists struggle to achieve. Their sense of emptiness drives them to seek external sources of happiness, whether it's a person, an object, or a fleeting moment of admiration. Today they may claim that you are their joy. Tomorrow it might be someone else, a new possession, or a different form of praise. They fail to cultivate happiness from within, instead treating people and things as temporary fixes for their inner void. Once something or someone no longer serves that purpose, they move on without hesitation. This shallow pursuit of happiness often creates inconsistencies in their responses. They might tell you, "You make me happy," but their behavior frequently tells another story. They may ignore your emotional needs, fail to engage meaningfully in the relationship, or make you feel lonely even while they claim you're their source of joy. These sweet words, while initially reassuring, often mask a deeper self-centeredness that prioritizes their needs above all else. The truth is, narcissists aren't searching for happiness, they're seeking relief from their emptiness. But because they don't understand that true joy comes from within, they remain trapped in a relentless cycle of seeking and discarding. This leaves behind a trail of broken relationships and wounded hearts, as those who genuinely cared for them realized that their promises of happiness were never rooted in anything real or lasting. Understanding this dynamic can help you protect your own well-being and recognize the difference between genuine love and superficial charm. Why do you leave Maine and then come back? Loving a narcissist is like being trapped in an emotional roller coaster with no clear destination. One moment they abandon you, cold and detached, leaving you to pick up the pieces of your shattered emotions. Then, just as suddenly, they return, wielding charm, sweet promises, and carefully crafted words to draw you back into their grasp. This push and pull dynamic is not accidental. It's a calculated behavior rooted in their deep-seated insecurities and need for control. Understanding why they leave and return requires a closer look at the narcissist's psyche. Narcissists thrive on admiration and validation to sustain their inflated self-image, but beneath that surface lies a fragile sense of self-worth. When they feel you slipping away or suspect they are losing control, their instinct isn't to reflect or grow, it's to reassert dominance. Their return is often not about love or genuine remorse, Instead, it is a reaction to their fear of losing a valuable source of validation. When confronted about their behavior, narcissists rarely take responsibility. Instead, they employ tactics that shift the blame to you. They may accuse you of overreacting, downplay your concerns, or even twist the narrative, claiming you're not loving or forgiving enough. This is not only manipulative but also deeply disorienting, leaving you questioning your own perceptions and feelings. It's a form of emotional control that keeps you tethered to their whims. The harsh reality is their return is seldom about you as an individual. To them, you are a source of utility, a tool to prop up their ego or fill a void when other pursuits fail. When they return, it's often because they perceive a threat to their control or feel jealous seeing you thrive without them. It's not about rekindling love. It's about reasserting their influence and keeping you within their emotional reach. This cyclical pattern, love, abandonment, reconciliation, is exhausting and deeply harmful. It drains your emotional energy, leaving you feeling powerless and dependent. When you ask, "Why do you leave me and then come back?" the answer lies not in your actions but in their need to control and dominate. Their inability to form healthy attachments leads them to perpetuate this toxic cycle. Recognizing this pattern is essential for your well-being. It's not about fixing them or finding a way to make them stay. It's about understanding their behavior and refusing to be a pawn in their game. By acknowledging the deeper dynamics at play, you can begin to reclaim your emotional independence and protect yourself from further harm. Why is it so hard for you to say "I'm sorry"? For narcissists, saying "I'm sorry" isn't just difficult, it's almost unthinkable. An apology requires admitting fault, which directly conflicts with the image of perfection they've constructed to protect their fragile self-esteem. To them, apologizing feels like surrendering power or exposing vulnerability, both of which they perceive as threats. This fear of appearing flawed or weak drives their resistance to taking responsibility, even in situations where their wrongdoing is evident. At its core, this avoidance stems from a deep-seated insecurity. Narcissists rely heavily on maintaining control and projecting an air of infallibility. Admitting they've made a mistake challenges this carefully crafted image and forces them to confront feelings of inadequacy they work tirelessly to suppress. Instead of viewing an apology as a path to reconciliation, they see it as a risk, a crack in their armor that might invite criticism or diminish their perceived authority. When confronted about their inability to apologize, narcissists often deflect or shift blame. They might argue that they've done nothing wrong, accuse others of overreacting, or turn the focus back on you, making you feel like the one at fault. This tactic isn't about resolving conflict. It's about preserving their sense of superiority and avoiding the discomfort of accountability. Even when they know an apology is warranted, their fear of appearing vulnerable outweighs their willingness to take ownership. This resistance to apologizing has a profound impact on their relationships. Healthy relationships require trust, mutual respect, and the ability to admit mistakes. By refusing to say "I'm sorry," narcissists create emotional distance, leaving conflicts unresolved and eroding the trust of those around them. Over time, this pattern can lead to resentment and disconnection as their loved ones feel unheard, unvalued, and unappreciated. Asking a narcissist why they find it so hard to apologize is a powerful question because it challenges their perception of strength. It forces them to confront the idea that true strength lies not in avoiding responsibility but in embracing humility. While they may resist the reflection this question invites, it highlights a critical truth. Apologies are not a sign of weakness but a cornerstone of emotional maturity and meaningful connection. Without this understanding, narcissists remain trapped in their fear of vulnerability, sacrificing genuine relationships for the illusion of invulnerability. What are you most ashamed of? At first glance, this question might seem straightforward, but its depth reaches into the darkest, most hidden corners of the human spirit, especially for those who mask themselves in arrogance. For narcissists, whose lives are built on a foundation of pride and grandeur, this question strikes at the heart of an internal struggle they work tirelessly to conceal. Beneath the polished facade they present to the world lies a profound and simmering shame, rooted in a rejection of their true selves, a truth they cannot bear to face. Narcissists go to great lengths to project an image of perfection. They craft an outward appearance as if every aspect of their lives is under control, flawless, and enviable. But this is little more than a carefully constructed curtain, behind which insecurities and unresolved inner conflicts quietly fester. These individuals often perceive parts of themselves as weak or unworthy, and instead of confronting these feelings, they bury them deeply. To maintain the illusion of strength, they turn to belittling or controlling others, using cruelty or arrogance as a way to momentarily feel superior. This behavior doesn't signify confidence, it reveals the unrelenting conflict they carry within. There's an old saying, how you treat others reflects how you feel about yourself. For narcissists, this is profoundly true. Their harshness, coldness, and even hostility toward others aren't signs of genuine power, but are instead projections of their own inner pain. They are haunted by feelings of guilt and shame over the parts of themselves they deem unacceptable. These unresolved burdens weigh heavily on their psyche, yet they go to great lengths to ensure these vulnerabilities remain hidden. Rather than addressing these truths, they lash out at the world, deflecting attention from their inner turmoil. When asked, "What are you most ashamed of?" it's not just a question, it's a direct challenge to the emotional fortress they've spent a lifetime building. To a narcissist, this question feels like an attack, targeting the most sensitive and closely guarded areas of their soul. Their instinctive reactions, avoidance, defensiveness, or even anger reflect their desperation to keep these truths buried. Behind their outward arrogance and bravado lies an overwhelming shame, one that's deeper and more consuming than most would ever suspect. Understanding this internal struggle helps us see beyond their behavior and recognize the profound vulnerability they're determined to hide. What do you think others truly think of you? Behind the confident, and often arrogant, exterior of a narcissist lies an extraordinary sensitivity to how others perceive them. While they may present themselves as indifferent or unconcerned, this is far from the truth. When confronted with the question, "What do you think others truly think of you?" they rarely respond honestly. Instead, their answers may range from dismissive indifference, claiming they couldn't care less about others' opinions, to grandiose exaggerations of admiration, where they insist others hold them in the highest regard. Sometimes they even paint themselves as victims, asserting that they are misunderstood or unfairly resented. These reactions are carefully constructed to hide their deep-seated insecurity and anxiety. The reality is that narcissists crave recognition and validation more than most people. They are hyper-aware of every glance, every comment, analyzing these as measures of their worth. Yet this intense need for validation comes with a fear of genuine feedback, especially when it's critical. The thought of someone pointing out their flaws or weaknesses is unbearable, as it threatens to dismantle the carefully curated image they project. This terror of exposure forces them to avoid situations where they might hear the unvarnished truth about how others see them. This fear creates a relentless cycle of inner conflict. Narcissists desperately want to be loved and accepted, but the possibility of rejection or criticism terrifies them. They seek out admiration while simultaneously insulating themselves from honest assessments, building emotional walls to protect their fragile self-esteem. This self-imposed isolation leaves them stuck in a defensive and hypervigilant state, scrutinizing every interaction for signs of approval or disapproval. When asked, "What do you think others truly think of you?" the question strikes a nerve because it challenges the idealized self-image they've painstakingly crafted. It forces them to grapple with the uncomfortable truth that their outward confidence is nothing more than a shield. Beneath it all, they are deeply vulnerable, perpetually haunted by the fear that they are not good enough in the eyes of others. This is a truth they are unwilling and often unable to face, making the question both a threat and a mirror to their hidden insecurities. What are some of your deepest wounds? When you ask a narcissist about their deepest wounds, you're unlikely to receive an honest or reflective response. Instead, they may react with denial or feigned confusion, as if the question is irrelevant to them. Often they dismiss the idea entirely, claiming to be unshakable and above such vulnerabilities. They may deflect by blaming others or external circumstances, but they rarely, if ever, admit to feeling hurt or acknowledge being a victim of their own experiences. The reality, however, is quite different. Narcissists are often shaped by environments filled with trauma, rejection, or emotional neglect. The pain of their past is buried so deeply that even they avoid looking at it directly. Confronting their own emotional wounds would mean admitting to imperfections and taking responsibility for their actions, something their fragile egos cannot withstand. To maintain their illusion of perfection and superiority, they construct a façade that hides their inner struggles, masking their deepest vulnerabilities from both themselves and the world. At times, narcissists may take a different approach, using their past traumas as a tool to manipulate others. By presenting themselves as victims, they recount tales of hardship to elicit sympathy or gain control over those who care for them. However, this performance is rarely about seeking genuine understanding or healing. Instead, it serves as another means to secure attention and maintain influence, all while avoiding meaningful introspection or change. Ultimately, a narcissist's relationship with their emotional wounds is defined by avoidance and exploitation. Whether they deny their pain altogether or use it as a weapon to manipulate, they rarely confront it in a way that fosters growth or healing. This inability to face their deepest wounds keeps them trapped in a cycle of defensiveness and emotional disconnection, shielding them from the vulnerability they fear most. Why is it so hard for you to admit when you're wrong? For a narcissist, this question isn't just a challenge, it's a direct assault on the very foundation of their identity. Admitting fault requires confronting a truth they've worked tirelessly to avoid: their imperfection. While most people see mistakes as part of being human and an opportunity for growth, narcissists view them as existential threats to their carefully curated self-image. A mistake isn't just a misstep, it's a crack in the armor that shields their fragile ego. To them, acknowledging this crack feels like opening the floodgates to insecurity and self-doubt. This avoidance is rooted in a deeply ingrained defense mechanism. Narcissists often construct a psychological barrier so strong that even they believe their own narrative of infallibility. Their inability to admit wrongdoing is not simply stubbornness, it's a survival strategy. To maintain the illusion of perfection, they go to great lengths to shift blame. They may accuse others, blame external circumstances, or even create convoluted excuses that absolve them of responsibility. These behaviors are not random, they are calculated attempts to deflect attention from their vulnerabilities and keep their constructed persona intact. For narcissists, their sense of worth is tied entirely to how others perceive them. They need to be seen as exceptional, flawless, competent, and superior. Admitting to a mistake threatens to unravel this image, exposing them as ordinary, flawed, and human. This is more than a bruise to their ego, it's a direct hit to their sense of self. The very idea of being viewed as imperfect can feel intolerable, triggering deep feelings of shame and inadequacy that they are desperate to avoid. The stakes are even higher because narcissists often associate their self-worth with external validation. They crave admiration and respect from those around them, and in their minds, admitting a mistake risks losing this recognition. It's not just about avoiding the blame, it's about preserving their status and the admiration they feel they need to survive emotionally. This creates a paradox. They want to be seen as confident leaders or capable individuals, yet their refusal to take responsibility often undermines those very qualities in the eyes of others. In a sense, narcissists are trapped in a cycle of their own making. Their inability to admit they are wrong stems from a deep fear of vulnerability, which prevents them from experiencing genuine growth or forming authentic connections. Admitting fault would require them to confront their flaws, accept their humanity, and risk exposing themselves to criticism, a process they find almost impossible. This internal conflict keeps them locked in a state of defensiveness, blame shifting, and self-deception, prioritizing the preservation of their image over meaningful personal or relational development. Understanding this dynamic helps illuminate why narcissists behave the way they do. Their resistance to accountability isn't merely a refusal to acknowledge the obvious, it's a reflection of their deep-seated fear of imperfection and the lengths they'll go to avoid facing it. What is your greatest weakness? When asked, what is your greatest weakness? A narcissist faces an uncomfortable dilemma. Admitting a genuine flaw would mean acknowledging they aren't perfect, a truth they go to great lengths to avoid. Yet completely dodging the question risks exposing cracks in the flawless image they work so hard to project. To navigate this, they often give evasive answers that turn a weakness into a disguised strength. For example, they might claim to be too much of a perfectionist or someone who works too hard. These responses sound polished but carefully avoid the heart of the matter. In reality, a narcissist's greatest weakness lies in their profound lack of self-awareness. They either fail or outright refuse to recognize how their actions and attitudes harm those around them. Traits like arrogance, stubbornness, and a refusal to accept accountability alienate others. Yet narcissists are blind to these consequences. This blindness not only damages relationships but also stunts their personal growth, as they cannot learn from mistakes they refuse to acknowledge. This lack of self-awareness creates a destructive cycle. Unwilling to confront their flaws, they repeat the same harmful behaviors, often leaving a trail of broken relationships in their wake. Instead of reflecting on the damage they cause, they sink deeper into self-deception, constructing an exaggerated self-image to protect their fragile egos. By doing so, they isolate themselves further, perpetuating their emotional disconnection and reinforcing their unhealthy patterns. The question, what is your greatest weakness, ultimately serves as a mirror, one that narcissists are unwilling to look into. Answering truthfully would mean confronting a reality they find unbearable, that their perfection is an illusion and their inability to embrace vulnerability is the barrier to a more genuine and fulfilling life. Recognizing this dynamic sheds light on why such a simple question can provoke such complex and telling reactions. What kind of person do you admire? For a narcissist, the concept of genuinely admiring someone else is almost alien. In their world, they see themselves as the center, the ideal that others should strive to emulate. To them, admiration implies recognizing someone else's superiority in some way, a notion they find deeply unsettling and incompatible with their self-image. As a result, they often avoid admitting admiration, as it would challenge the carefully constructed image of their own perfection. When asked, what kind of person do you admire? They often stumble. To maintain their perfect façade, they might offer a generic rehearsed answer, citing well-known figures in a superficial way. But beneath the surface, they rarely admire anyone in a heartfelt or genuine manner. In their eyes, others rarely measure up. What could be respect or appreciation for someone else's qualities is often replaced by envy, resentment, or dismissive indifference. Narcissists live in a fantasy of their own greatness, where they believe they possess unmatched qualities that set them apart from everyone else. This illusion is their armor, a shield protecting them from feelings of inadequacy or insecurity. But this mindset comes at a cost. It isolates them from appreciating the genuine strengths, achievements, or beauty in others. Their inability to admire others authentically reflects their disconnection from the values that foster meaningful relationships and growth. When a narcissist does claim to admire someone, it's rarely without ulterior motives or complex emotions. Their so-called admiration is often laced with jealousy, as they envy the success or recognition they feel should rightfully be theirs. Instead of celebrating another's achievements, they may feel slighted, perceiving it as a personal injustice that the spotlight wasn't on them. This resentment fuels a cycle of bitterness where they minimize others' accomplishments as mere luck or undeserved, while justifying why they themselves are more worthy of recognition. This inability to genuinely admire others traps narcissists in a self-centered and isolating cycle. Instead of being inspired by others' successes, they view them through a lens of comparison and competition. Rather than celebrate, they may belittle or overshadow, using sarcasm or criticism to undercut the achievements of others. This behavior not only prevents them from learning and growing, but also deepens their emotional isolation, leaving them locked in a world of resentment and dissatisfaction. Ultimately, narcissists crave admiration but lack the ability to reciprocate it genuinely. Their refusal to appreciate others' worth stems from their deep insecurity, robbing them of the chance to connect with others meaningfully or draw inspiration from the world around them. It's a mindset that not only limits their relationships, but also stifles their personal growth, leaving them perpetually unfulfilled and disconnected. What do you value in relationships? For narcissists, relationships often lack the depth and meaning that many people cherish. To them, relationships aren't about mutual understanding, emotional connection, or shared growth. They're transactional. Narcissists approach relationships as opportunities to gain something for themselves, whether it's attention, admiration, control, or tangible benefits. Their focus is rarely, if ever, on the needs or emotions of the other person. From their perspective, the value of a relationship lies solely in what others can offer them. This could be as simple as validation or as complex as influence or resources. Their self-centered approach makes it nearly impossible to build or sustain meaningful connections. Genuine care and mutual investment in a relationship are often missing, as their interest seldom extends beyond their own gain. A significant barrier to forming meaningful relationships is their lack of empathy. Narcissists struggle or outright refuse to consider others' thoughts and feelings. This inability to step into another person's shoes leads them to dismiss or ignore the emotional needs of those around them. While healthy relationships thrive on empathy, understanding, and reciprocity, narcissists focus only on what they can receive, offering little in return. When asked, "What do you value in relationships?" their responses are often vague or superficial. They may claim to value trust, love, or loyalty, but their actions rarely reflect these principles. Instead, their true priority is how relationships can affirm their worth, enhance their image, or temporarily distract them from inner emptiness. This approach makes their relationships inherently unstable. Over time, others often feel used, unappreciated, or disrespected, leading to emotional distance and eventual breakdowns. Rather than acknowledging their role in these failures, narcissists typically blame others or external circumstances. They rarely recognize that their lack of empathy and self-serving behavior are the root causes of their relational difficulties. Ultimately, narcissists' inability to value relationships for what they truly are, a partnership of mutual respect and care, leaves them isolated. Their focus on taking, rather than giving, creates a cycle of shallow connections and unresolved conflicts. Understanding this dynamic is essential for protecting your emotional well-being when navigating a relationship with a narcissist. Why are you kind to strangers but not to your loved ones? Have you ever noticed how a narcissist can be unbelievably kind and charming to strangers but cold and indifferent to those closest to them? This isn't a coincidence, it's a calculated strategy. Narcissists wear a perfect mask, a carefully crafted façade designed to impress, attract attention, and gain control. Their apparent kindness to strangers doesn't come from a place of genuine goodwill. It's a tool they use to manipulate and create an image of themselves as likable, charismatic, and admirable. If you question this stark contrast in behavior, don't expect a straight answer. Narcissists rarely admit their true motives. Instead, they'll provide reasonable-sounding justifications or make you feel as though you're overthinking. But the truth is, their kindness to strangers is a performance. They want the world to see them as flawless and appealing, and strangers often become unwitting participants in this show. To the narcissist, strangers represent opportunities, sources of admiration, validation, or potential advantages. Their kindness is transactional, designed to elicit praise or leverage future benefits. The dynamic shifts drastically when it comes to those in close relationships, family, close friends, or romantic partners. Once a narcissist feels they have you securely within their grasp, the mask comes off. They no longer see a need to maintain their charming facade. Instead, their true nature emerges, self-centered, dismissive, and sometimes outright cruel. Loved ones become the outlet for their frustrations and insecurities, enduring behaviors that would never be directed toward strangers. The kindness once shown to gain your trust is replaced by toxic patterns that prioritize their needs above all else. This contradiction often leaves loved ones feeling confused and doubting themselves. You may wonder if you did something to lose the kindness and affection they once displayed. But the reality is, their behavior isn't about you. Narcissists see kindness as a tool to serve their ego. Once someone no longer fulfills their need for admiration or validation, that tool is discarded without a second thought. When you see a narcissist treating strangers with impeccable kindness while being indifferent or worse toward you, remember that you're witnessing the two sides of the same person. The polished, charming version is the mask they use to impress the outside world. The unfiltered, indifferent side reveals their true nature: selfish, calculating, and focused only on their own needs. Understanding this duality helps you see through their behavior and protect yourself from the emotional toll of their manipulative ways. Why do you feel the need to control everything? For a narcissist, control isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. Their need to dominate every situation stems from a deep-seated fear of vulnerability and a desperate desire to maintain their carefully constructed image. To them, losing control means exposing their insecurities and flaws, which they perceive as unacceptable risks. This drive to control often manifests in subtle ways: micromanaging, gaslighting, or manipulating others to ensure everything aligns with their agenda. When faced with this question, a narcissist may dismiss it outright, deflect, or even accuse you of overstepping. Admitting to this need for control would mean confronting their fear of inadequacy, something they fiercely avoid. Instead, they may justify their behavior as being protective or assertive, framing their actions in a positive light. But their obsession with control often damages relationships. By prioritizing their need to dominate, they disregard the autonomy and feelings of those around them, creating tension and resentment. This need for control reveals not strength, but a fragile inner world where power and manipulation serve as shields against the fear of losing their grip. Asking this question not only challenges their behavior but also forces them to reflect, if only momentarily, on the root of their actions. It's a chance to expose the deeper dynamics driving their control and to better understand how it affects those around them. Thank you for joining us on this journey to explore these critical questions about narcissistic behavior. These questions are more than just tools for understanding; they're a way to gain insight into how narcissists think, act, and interact with the world around them. Remember, dealing with a narcissist can be challenging, but knowledge is your greatest ally. By understanding their behavior, you can protect yourself, maintain your confidence, and foster healthier relationships in your life. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. Share it with someone who might benefit from it. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Together, we can continue exploring the fascinating world of psychology and learn how to navigate life with greater wisdom and clarity. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.